When I was in Nepal, in the school, we had this called school living certificate. And after you complete that, and you can choose which university to go based on the score that you get. And among those subjects, English language was the lowest mark. So I was just passed. So 32 marks out of 100. So, and then somehow some miracle happened. I received 32. And that actually put me off from English language. Mm-hmm. And when I was in Thailand, and I also thought that I do not need English language. So I spent a lot of time reading in Thai. And Thai language is a very beautiful language, particularly studying the Dhamma. And I found it very fascinated with this language. So many levels and so many layers on it, and still learning Thai language. So it happened that after a couple of years of staying in Thailand, then my master died in Nepal. When I traveled to Nepal, then I realized actually English language is needed. So after 10 days staying in Nepal, I went back and I spent a lot of time studying English. So reading and translating just to get used to. And my intention was to join the international school for my master's in the Buddhist studies. For that purpose, I spent reading English language books and the Dhammas. Somehow, after about 6-7 months of spending time studying this English language in Dhamma, and I had to write one article before I get the interview, and I wrote that article in English. And I asked one of the monks, who actually from Aberdeenshire, and he's been a monk for 50 years. I gave him to edit every sentence read. Corrected.
Ajahn, you weren't speaking Doric. He came from Aberdeenshire.
Right, and he said, you need more work. And again, I spent another 3 months on that same article based on his comments. And somehow I got the place for this international Buddhist studies. And then I spent a lot of time recording all the lectures, recording in a tape recorder at that time. Tape recording, and then on the way back to the temple, on the bus, I will listen that English talk, the lectures. And then I write it down again, all those lectures, simply to get used to with it. And somehow again, after 2 years of studying, I managed to finish my MA in Buddhist studies in English language. And that's how I came to UK and again studied IELTS, IELTS, ESOL classes join the ESOL classes, and spend a lot of time listening BBC4, watching BBC News, like that. And now I think I can speak English properly, a little bit. And yet, the meaning of each words or the sentence, the depth of it, still, I could not understand. And I could not explain. I still feel like on the surface of this language. So I still need to work hard. So the reason I'm telling this story is basically to link with our practice of a meditation. That we have to work gradually, consistently, and continuously, collecting one after another. And eventually it comes to the stage that we feel like we know it. And it's become much easier for us to understand what are the benefits of the meditation practice. It's like a building a table. So we go to the forest, cut the tree, and make a different parts of the table. The table is not a table yet. The different parts we have made, and different parts of those parts of the table is not the table yet. But we have worked hard to make those parts, simply to assemble it and then become a table. So we cannot say these little parts as a table. And we cannot say that this is these items or parts that we have developed, converted, is not beneficial. That is beneficial, right? And then, as we have made this one part at a time, another part at a time, and then once everything has prepared, and it's only the matter of assembling it, right? So practice of a meditation is like that. We cannot only focus on making the legs of the table. We cannot focus only the flat, what's called the top of the table. We have to work each one at a time and making it nice, perfectly fitting in. That's the practice. So we are not just sitting in one position and focusing and developing our focus attention. So we have to practice it in a regular way, regular format, so that eventually it becomes so we become so confident in the practice that yes, this is, and now I know ins and out it. So it's a bit easier to assemble it. Now this is what the Buddha meant about it, that it is not about studying, it's not about memorizing, it's about ability to construct and then assemble it so that it becomes one format. And that's the practice. Otherwise, if we have just accumulated the information, it's like there is a story. His name was Potila. He's known as the empty vessel. So he studied the scripture, he remembers, and he also taught to so many people. And yet, he never practiced it. So as a result of that, he did not know what exactly the meanings of those teachings are. So that whenever he visits to the Buddha referred him, "Oh, there comes my son, the empty vessel." And then whenever he leaves, here goes my empty vessel, the son, like that. So that's why it's very important that not just the accumulation of the knowledge, we have to put it into practice. And when we put it into practice, it doesn't matter how long that practice is, as long as we are conscious about it and then regularly practicing. So this practice, again, that's why it's not just a one sitting practice, but try to practice it in everyday life. That eventually it becomes the second nature that I've been trying to introduce this. It becomes a second nature, so that whenever you are doing nothing or whenever you feel that want to practice, straight away you can practice it. Yeah. So this is like rather than lost into the thoughts, you just simply come back and an ability to, okay, now watch the breath. Even just walking, and when you're walking, rather than lost into the thought or thinking of a this and a that, an ability to be mindful that you're walking. Yeah? And whenever you're doing something, then ability to be mindful of bringing your awareness, okay, now I need to be mindful of that. And that's how we are basically constructing the legs and other parts of the table. And then gradually it becomes part of the table that we can assemble it eventually. And that assembling is actually the beginning of the journey. Okay? Actually the beginning of the journey. Until this, we are basically working on. So there are three, Khanika, Upachara and Apana. Right? So Khanika, before that Khanika Samadhi, again there is called the, we have adapted something like the breath, and then we try to remember it. So we try to remember to be mindful that, okay, this is the breath. And with that remembering to be mindful of this breath, again and again, that's how we are gaining the momentary concentration. Okay? And this, the object, it's called a parikama nimitta, and that eventually it become the object that settled. Not like a settled, like a background. This object is a background stabilized. And with that, our mind, we become conscious of that regularly most of the time. And that's called the Uggaha Nimit. That means you can remember it, you don't have to think about it, and it becomes stabilized. Okay, I have a breath to be mindful of, like that. Not confused. Right? And then it becomes, that's the last one. It's called the counterpart sign that I was talking about last week. It's called Patibhaga Nimit. That means it is established. Right? This is established in our consciousness, in our mind, that whenever we want to think of it, it's there. We are not lost. Right? And that's how, this is the moment when we can develop that stage of the mind, and that's the complete stabilized now. Firmly stabilized, established in it. And this is the time all these, the 5 hindrances are subsided. So again, we have to remember, our practice is not to get rid of hindrances. Our practice is to develop the samadhi, the concentration. As the samadhi develops, these will just fade away. But if you are working to do this one only, then samadhi is not there. We are working with the revenge one. There's a negative mindset, working with a negative mindset. And then with that, whenever we are trying it but not able to suppress or eradicate or abandon it, what happens? Mind becomes more frustrated. There is more frustration, restlessness is there, and that generates more anger. And that anger, again, not only keeping to ourselves, we again try to find somebody to blame, which is much easier for us. And we normally do it a lot, find someone to blame. So that's why this practice, as we develop, once this counterpart sign or this Uggaha Nimitta established, and that time actually our mind is fully stabilized, and that time we are not thinking of the breath. We are not thinking of the breath. It's become a second nature now. When we are not doing anything else, mindsetness automatically comes to rest there. Come to rest there. Suppose you're sitting somewhere and then and we are thinking something else, and you recognize, oh, I'm thinking this. Realize it, and then left it there, and then simply comes, and that's how you gain the calmness. That's how you gain the peacefulness. Okay? So that is the case that we have to work consistently, continuously, and collecting, like sometimes I call it collecting the points to fulfill. And that's like making a chair or the table that we collected, and eventually we able to assemble it. The moment when we assemble, what happens? We feel happy, the joy. Right? So we're settled, our work been done now. Right? And once we have done this work, then we can feel a joy and a happiness. So that is what we are focusing on. Okay, so with this reflection, let's practice meditation. So sitting in a comfortable position and bringing your attention back to the moment, here and now. And leaving all your responsibilities. And spend some time relaxing the body. And bring your attention to be mindful of the breath, incoming and outgoing breath. Initially, you may have to force yourself or put an effort to be mindful of this breath, incoming and outgoing, as it comes and as it goes. So this is the initial stage that we are creating the sign for the mind to be mindful of. And each time when we are mindful of this each breath, so we're gaining some concentration. And as we become familiar with it, mind tends to stay with it a bit longer, less distractions, an ability to be mindful of this incoming breath and outgoing breath. And creating a specific place to be mindful of it, like tip of the nose. Simply to cultivate the settling point. And as your mind settled, the breath becomes much familiar and developing. There's a counterpart of this location, the breath. The actual place, tip of the nose that's taking place, and as well as at the back of your mind. This is the place. So as long as you are still forcing yourself or putting much effort to be mindful of it, then you would not be able to develop this counterpart. You have to relax your mind, relax your effort, and just be mindful as it comes and as it goes. So in this process, you may practice the observation, acknowledgement, noting and letting go. Any other distractions or any other thoughts. And recognizing those distractions or the thoughts, simply realizing, relaxing, releasing and return. And as you return, your mind is settled, relaxed, your body settled, relaxed. Our breath is calm, body is calm, mind is settled. And at this moment again, try to learn the awareness is one thing, breath is another. Also try to be mindful of any other different sensations, like the insect crawling in your face, a lightness, body movements or shakiness, exalting. And yet there is a breath at the background. Whenever you experience any other sensations like the animal crawling in your face or body shaking or feeling soft or exulting, those times, again, recognizing them but do not dwell on it. Just perceiving them objectively. Do not hold on to those that this is this or this is that. Do not generate a positivity, wishing to have it more. Or do not generate resentment of not able to keep it or not wanting to have it. And when you are experiencing those again, do not try to come back to the breath. Breath is just at the background. Just aware of those. And when you are aware of that, what effects you can experience or how deep or how content you are. So perceiving as they are, but not developing that this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And this is again, we are not expecting anything, we're not hoping anything, whatever is there, just being aware. Do not think about it, and do not try to create anything out of it. And obviously, if you find difficult, let's come back to the breath. It's like you're driving a car on a straight highway. When you are on the right lane, you don't have to worry about the steering, just enjoying the view, enjoying the drive. In the practice, when you are settled, you don't have to worry about the breath. But when you find difficult, just come back to the breath, like coming back to the steering wheel when you have to change the lanes or find turnings. Simply to settle and find the right track. So continue practicing until you hear the gong.